Congrats again, Maritza, on this award. I have a few questions about your reporting and the important work that you're doing. How did you first discover Postal Service plans to remove mailboxes in Montana? And also, were you aware that this was a problem that was developing in other cities around the country?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it first hit my radar from the office of Senator John Tester. His office sent out a release that just kind of mentioned reports. There was nothing, substantiated. There were no details. They said they've heard reports that this is happening and just in a couple towns in Montana. And he had preemptively written the Postmaster General to ask more questions about this. So we took that email from reports just in Montana, and it just kind of snowballed into this much larger thing. And getting documents and getting confirmation from local postal union leaders, and we had no idea how big it was.
Right, and that's interesting. You mentioned the postal workers. It can be challenging to get government workers to talk to reporters. So, can you talk a little bit about gaining the trust of postal workers?
Yeah, well, I really think it's time and time in your own communities. I really think this is a story that just is such a great example of why local news matters. You're in your
Mhm.
community, you're building those relationships, and you're showing people that they can trust you with sensitive information and to not burn them because they really put their lives on the line sending me some of these documents. And so I really think it's that time, and also just being engaged, and not just being engaged when you need something, but being engaged when you don't need something. That's a really important lesson I learned early on in my career. And so it was wonderful that they trusted me with this information. The funny thing is, I had already set up an interview with one of the local postal service workers. We were going to start looking at delays and possible ramifications in Montana because of new policies that were being enacted, such as having trucks leave, even if all the mail wasn't collected, those kinds of things. And it was just perfect timing that this email came down from Senator Tester's office the night before I had already had that interview scheduled.
Interesting. Well, also the governor obviously got involved as well. Do you think that your reporting played a role in Governor Steve Bullock's decision to sue the Postmaster General?
Yeah, I do, mostly because they used my reporting as an example in the filing. And so, it was wonderful to see so many different things grow off of this first initial report. And we're still talking about it. There are still things I'm digging into on this because it was a really important issue for a lot of people, and something that they could see and was tangible in front of them, not just something happening behind the scenes, but they could see the blue boxes and say, well, we don't want that to go away.
Exactly. I also thought it was really interesting the way you use social media in your reporting, especially Twitter, to continually update your story. And I was wondering what kind of a reaction did you get on social media, and did that help your reporting in any way?
I really think that Twitter drove this entire story.
Mhm.
I used to not be a believer in Twitter. I didn't really understand it. I wasn't very good at it. And I have a news director who came in when he first started with us and said, Twitter is so important and such a useful tool for journalists. This story really drove that message home for me. So I posted the initial release once I got some of that confirmed beyond just reports of mailboxes, but actually lists. And we started to post it. And it really just shared exponentially, and it just spread so fast in all of these markets it was reaching. And it really drove me to keep going forward in my reporting and keep digging and keep asking questions. And because of it, it was almost like this interactive community effort of
Mhm.
people saying, well, what about this? And what about this? And can you find out about this? And really exemplified public service journalism and relying on people from all walks of life to bring up things that I may not have thought about. And if it weren't for a few very high profile people sharing it early in the day, who knows if it would have had the reach and the impact that it did. There are certainly other stories I've covered in my career where I thought it would have a big impact, and then they just kind of fizzled. And so it just was the perfect timing of the right people seeing it, the right people sharing it, and getting really upset and really involved in it.
Right, right. So it was a local story, but obviously it grew into a national story. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow spotted your reporting and the pressure that you were putting on the Postal Service. I mean, what was your reaction when all of a sudden you were mentioned on Rachel Maddow's show? And she had, I know she had reached out to you.
Well, I was in total disbelief. I still am, to be honest. I have that clip saved, and every once in a while it'll pop up and I'll watch a few minutes. And, I had an idea she might share a little something about it. I had no idea it was going to be the first 20 minutes of her show that night. And I was in disbelief at the whole day. It was such a rapidly evolving and moving day. My mom was just coming in from out of town, so I had a lot of other stuff kind of going on, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And so by the time I was finished, I was really exhausted and tired and trying to make my deadline. And then we had the breaking news late in the afternoon that, okay, they stopped this policy, not just in Montana, but across the country. So it was a really busy day. So I was just kind of coming down off of that adrenaline rush of rushing all day. And I had paused my TV. I was going to watch just in case she, maybe mentioned the tweet. And I was making dinner, and all of a sudden my phone started lighting up with text messages. Like, oh my gosh, your story's on MSNBC right now on Rachel Maddow. And so then, I was 10 minutes behind, and I got to watch, and it was surreal. It was surreal watching it all.
I bet. I mean, just knowing that your work, that your reporting was having that kind of an impact. I wonder too, once the Postal Service put the removal of mailboxes on hold, I know that a spokesperson for the Postal Service told you that they would look at operations after the election and then decide if changes were needed. So I'm wondering, since the election, have there been any changes that you've reported on regarding the Postal Service in Montana?
I feel bad because there are certainly more conversations that I'm due to have. I don't think there have been any actual changes around those USPS blue boxes. I think I would hear about that. But I have heard, after that, we had some machines, some heavy equipment that were removed from certain post office locations in Montana.
Uh-huh.
And I just actually checked in recently with one of my sources, and they let me know that some of those machines they were told they were going to be replaced, they still haven't been. So there's work to do. And I also have a whole list of FOIA documents that I received over density tests and the way they came up with those lists to remove those boxes. And so there's a lot more work to be done on this, but nothing that I've heard of as far as those blue boxes being slated for removal again.
Oh, that's good. Good. Well, this year, as you know, states across the country are passing laws to restrict voting. So what role do you think journalists like you can play in making sure the right to vote and the very backbone of our democracy are not undermined?
Well, I think, like I said, this is really an example of why journalism matters, and especially local journalism. Because if you start talking about huge things happening nationally, I think a lot of people can tune out, or they think, it's not going to affect them, or it's stuff happening behind closed doors. But if you can actually spell it out for how you are going to see these policies change your life, or the way you vote, or the way you operate daily in your own town, that's when people start to care. And so this really, I just can't say it enough. I mean, local journalism on the ground matters, and you get people caring about what's happening in their own community. It's no different, we're covering this unbelievable wildfire season already. That's likely to be one of the most, if not the most devastating we've ever seen. And for a lot of people, it doesn't really click until there's a fire burning near their home. And then it clicks on how devastating these are. And so I really think just getting on the ground and digging in and figuring out how this will look, what these policies will look like to people every single day in their own communities is really the key to making people care about some of these issues.
Right, absolutely. And local news affecting people's lives really on a daily basis. So, yeah, congratulations again. I mean, your reporting was so outstanding and really made an impact. And, voting is our democracy. So I can't really think of anything that's really more important. So, congratulations again.
Thank you so very much. I'm still blown away by this, to be honest. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful surprise.